All right, everybody. Hey, great to be with you. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day and it is filled with you being in your center and a tremendous amount of gratitude and love in your heart. You know, we have the privilege every single day to go out and serve and bless lives and to elevate. And frankly, I co create in this world that we live in. And I hope that you're taking the time and energy to do so. So there's often so much strain and stress of the transactions that we do, but my observation is that if we will just take the time and the energy to find our center, and then we will go take action with the principles of just simply, how can I help someone, how can I help, and with that attitude and with that approach, it's always a certainty that good things will happen. And I know that we're going to be speaking with someone who truly is a hero of mine, someone I have great respect for, great love for. And I've watched her journey now for over 10 years as she entered into the organization. When she entered into the organization, she was, just getting her feet wet. She came from another organization originally and started with, I think, around 9 transactions. She can fill us in a little bit on that. But today, her team sell well over 150 homes and is one of the top agents in the organization. As we move through our lives, just remember how important it is that so much of what we create is casting a clear vision. And I know of no one better at doing that than Miss Amy Clark. So with that, let's bring her forward. Let me just unmute her. And Amy, welcome to today's Morning Ascent. So great to be with you.
Hi, everybody.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Great. I'm doing really, really good. Hey, I'm so excited to be able to have a chance to spend time with you. In fact, there's so many great agents, and I think that it's that the challenge is there's only so many hours and days in the day, because I want to share everybody with anyone who has such a wonderful story as yours is. So just talk just a little bit. Let's get right into it. Let's start into the fact that one, you're a top. I think last year you were number 27 in the world for Century 21. Obviously a top agent in Century 21 Everest. You're multiple, I think 5-time Centurion, Grand Centurion, double Centurion. I mean, you've done so much over this last decade and have really, a lot of people might even say an overnight success, but the reality is we all know that is not the case, because I know that how hard you've worked, how much time, energy, and effort you've taken to get where you are. But I also know how you have applied principles that are within, frankly, even within the organization, and ones that you've attached yourself to that have brought great success to you. So with that, tell us just a little bit about Amy Clark. Who is she?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. Depends on who you're asking, but I guess you're asking me, so I get to pick the good stuff.
That's right. You do.
Well, as far as my journey into real estate, we think about that decision that we decided to go to school as being the beginning of how we got into real estate, or even how we are successful. But really, as I have just been thinking the last couple of days, I've been wondering what you're going to ask me. There's really no way to prepare to come and talk to.
I always get people wanting me to tell them the questions, and I always say, I'm not really looking for your preparation. I'm looking for you to just speak from your heart and soul. So to your point, but then I also know that people get this idea of what they want to share, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But all I want is, we want your heart and we want your truth.
Well, I guess one of the things that I was thinking about when I'm actually in the office today, which I've been doing a little bit of both, but I was thinking about the one thing that popped into my mind, and this may not be exactly what you're looking for, and I can shift gears and tell you more of the details, but I remembered about the very first time I got my heart broken. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to bring up, but well, let me explain. So I remember the very first time that my heart literally crashed, and I felt this whole body experience, and I was pretty young, and the boy that I loved, he actually died in a kind of a brutal accident, and I remember crying for days, and I was 8 years old.
Wow. Wow, though. That's pretty tragic.
It was very tragic. And I remember crying in my bedroom alone. I didn't cry with anybody else. I cried by myself and holding my big giant Clifford stuffed animal that was taller than me for days. And it was it was a heartbreak. And now that I look back at the things in my business that I do well, I've realized that it's because of tragedy that I have skills to be sensitive and to be compassionate and to give people a service at a really high level. I mean, by the time I was a senior in high school, I had lost several people in my life, which is quite young to lose people. I know some of you can relate, and in fact, in my senior year, my grandmother had come to live with us, and she had brain, and is the grandmother that was named after, an incredible Southern, spicy lady that we loved and feared all in one package. And we shared a really tiny room together, and she actually passed away in my bedroom my senior year. And I know these are weird things to share, but it kind of set the stage for me to have so much loss in my life, to know that I could survive loss. And I have actually
I've
had
never heard you describe it that way. That is so powerful.
Well, it's been something that has, when I started into real estate, just to get back to that point, I actually started on the lending side first. And that was a really great story, how that all came to pass, because really somebody was kind to me. And then I went over into the real estate side after a couple of years, and I was part-time at KW, for a year, and I was still doing mortgages and real estate. And any of you who are trying to get into real estate that have another job, it's just impossible to give your heart and soul to two different two different things. So I finally took the jump and joined George in the very beginning, when this was, I know you hate this, George, but it was ghetto Everest back in
right.
back in the shack down.
Actually, I don't know if I hate it. I actually think it's kind of funny.
So it was.
Yeah, it was a little hole in the wall that we were working out of.
Yeah. Well, there's something about being poor, though, that bonds people together with one direction to look, which is up. There you go. When we're starting out on a foundation, there's no place to go below. So
right. This is true. There wasn't much below that, especially in 2009.
No, there wasn't. I mean, we literally could stand in the office and I could go, "Hey, George, I got a problem. Hey, loan officer, what do you got? What's the rates today?" We were just all right there, and it was great. In fact, my interview, I still just kind of crack up about this interview into the company, if you want to call it that. And George, I won't go into how I actually started interviewing, why I came to the interview. You got, the backstory on that, but I sat across the table from George, John, and Rob, all three of them, and they literally, part-time agent. I had another job, only done 9 transactions, and they're like, "We need you. Please come to this company. What can we do for you? We have no money, but come to this company." And there was something I needed to change in my life, and I felt it. And I felt it here, that this was the place that I could make a change in a variety of places in my life. And that's why I jumped in and have been completely loyal to all of the ups and downs and growth of the company. And George is not perfect, but George always—
This is true.
But George, you always move up. And that's why you're one of my heroes, and why I am completely loyal, because my life has moved up as well. So that's kind of how I got to this company. And then we just did in the beginning.
So let's go back to that. Let's go back to the tragedy part, because obviously there's a lot of relationship to what's going on. I mean, people are feeling the feelings of grief. They're feeling the feelings of things that are very, very tragic. They're seeing people who are sick. They're seeing people who are paralyzed from the standpoint of action. They're feeling just the down of the market, and that doesn't matter whether it's California or Utah. The thing that's interesting to me is that I see it happening in both states, in both areas of our company, and the difficulty of that. So how are you using those experiences of, I almost want to say, the proof or the example or the knowledge of your past in regards to dealing with tragedy? How is that helping you today? And what counsel would you give to an agent today in regards to that? It's a great way to, that's a great story that you've shared so far. And by the way, I can relate. I was doing CPR on my 19-year-old sister, or sorry, my 29-year-old sister, and I was 19 years old. And I had a lot of people who passed away in my life in the first, from age 10 to about 20 in my life, from grandfathers that I was close to all sorts of crazy things happening, but a lot of death. And it taught me a lot. So how are you using that? And how would you encourage someone else to use the tragedies of their life for today?
Well, we have this focus right now on this particular thing that's keeping us down, and we're Americans, for one. I mean, we are Americans, and Americans are not used to having their freedoms taken away. And right now, there's a lot of things that we're just unaccustomed to, that we, by nature, are going to rebel just because we're Americans. So,
right.
So we're out of sorts in a way. But the same things that were going on before this all happened are still going on. I mean, people are still having loss in a variety of ways. There's still people dying. There's still people, I remember, so I got married really young. I got married when I was 20, just still in college. And then we tried to get pregnant. And you guys know I've had 5 kids now, but I had some loss. I had, lost a couple of pregnancies really far into the pregnancies. And I remember thinking during that time that I'm never going to be able to have children ever, because I've got some serious issues here. And then I did, and my heart was broken during those times. You feel devastated, that kind of pain where your body hurts because your sorrow is so big, and then you get through it, and then you're stronger for the next thing. And then I got divorced. And it wasn't one of those divorces where you're like, oh, I see this coming. I mean, some really bad stuff happened. And then here I was, and I had 5 kids. And it wasn't like my ex-husband was rich. And I just had to make a decision. And during that time, there's more, your heart's broken again. But I guess what I have learned, and that I can survive a broken heart. And not only can I survive a broken heart, but I can stitch it back together, and it can grow, and I can make room for some more breaks and stitch those up too, and keep going, and keep paying it forward with love and compassion for other people. Most of our life is about fixing stuff. And the few moments where we have a moment of peace or something actually works out, and we get to celebrate, it makes up for everything in the past. I mean, it just really does. I mean, how many times have we had a day or a week, and we're prospecting and we're not seeing any success, and then on day 4, we get a great client and they're under contract in 48 hours, and who cares what happened the rest of the week? We're like, woo!
Right, we forget. It's like we have amnesia, don't we?
Yeah, one moment of peace or a moment of success can fix a whole bunch of sorrow.
So perfectly said. So what counsel would you give to an agent who is really struggling? Like they very, very fearful to come out of their home, very, very fearful to really do anything. Like this stuff has really, really rattled them. And I know that there's a group, we have, 2 sides of the spectrum where there's been complete acceptance, and they're people who are just saying, I don't care, I'm going for it, I'm making the calls, I'm talking to the people, I'm not going to back down, I'm still going to have a great year. Yep, things are changing for me. There's the other side that are really, they're paralyzed, they're sad, they might even be all the way down into a full-blown depression. What would you counsel? And I know you, and maybe even just a little bit of your history with your, and your education. So speak to that, and then speak to what you would share with someone who really is in that space where this virus, right? This whole thing has gotten really the best of them. What would you say to them? So talk about where a little bit of your education, where you've come from, and then answer that.
Okay. Well, I went to school, graduated, and I worked in a counseling center office, and then I was the intake worker, who they call for the problems and how you place them. I also did part of their adoptions there too, and then I worked in
right to point. You've seen a lot of human tragedy, a lot of human suffering.
Yeah.
Right. And you've dealt with a lot of it, maybe more than even the average, not just because of living your own life, but because of the things that you were doing prior to coming into the real estate business. So from that standpoint, then what would you say to someone who truly is just absolutely stuck?
Well, when I worked in domestic violence, I also was an intake worker there. And a lot of times I was there by myself. And one of the things I noticed about the people that had been really oppressed, and people come in with the emotional damage was really hard. I mean, some people would come in and they didn't have a bruise on them, but they were beat to heck. And then of course there was other people that came in that they were unrecognizable. And I mean, you learn a lot from that. But what I learned from just the nature of people in this situation, and obviously a lot of them are depressed and they've had some self-medication, a bunch of stuff that has turned their life even worse than what it is that at some point when people step away from a particular environment that is negative and bad, that a lot of things start to come out. For example, I remember one day, and I knew, and I was, well, let me tell you what happened first. So I remember this one lady, at one point, she came up to me, and she'd been in the shelter for probably about 3 weeks. And she came up to me and she started screaming at me and yelling at me. And none of it made sense, or nothing was justified. But what was great about that is she got her voice back. And she was able to yell at somebody without getting the crap beat out of her. And she found her voice. So it was actually a victory that day. And I think that's one of the things that location sometimes is a big deal for changing our mood. If you're at home and you prospect in your home office and you're depressed in that office, change your spot. Go to the kitchen.
So change the environment.
Change your location. Yes, definitely change your location.
Or change up the environment.
Yeah, and then throw away, Vicente said it perfectly the other day, he threw away his business plan. We don't have to throw away our goals, but I don't care who you are, things have changed. We're not driving around like we were before. We're just, the schedule is not the same. So be honest about your schedule and review it. I review my schedule the night before, and then I review it again in the morning, and then I prioritize. Like we talk about having minimum standards, minimum things that I'm going to do. Now, right now, we all should be trying to be 5-star agents. I'm a 5-star agent. Now, if you only have one deal right now, you better be knocking that deal out of the park. I mean, you should be killing it, not just, I got one deal. I mean, make sure that your customer knows you're the only one and you are getting the red carpet. And I promise you guys, when you do that, you have customers for life. You have reviews.
Absolutely.
That going. I do whole families, grandma, parents, the children. I've got multiple families that I do all of their people. The other thing that I would say to this, George, is, and this is really important, I actually was just talking to my team about this yesterday, and if you write nothing down that I say, write this one thing down, is quit playing the all or nothing game, period. Quit playing the all or nothing game. And what I mean by that is we get out of sorts because maybe we planned on prospecting from 9 to noon. And then something happened with your kids at home and you couldn't, and now it's 10:30 and you're like, well, there goes my prospecting. Get on the phone at 10:30 and prospect anyway. or you're exercising. Well, I'm supposed to be, I can't go to the gym and do my regular stuff. So, and I was going to go for a walk this morning at 6 a.m., but now I woke up at 6:30, so I can't go. Well, go at 6:30 and go for 10
Right.
minutes instead of 30 minutes. Or, I mean, there's just a variety of things. Or eating, like I want to eat healthy, but I blew breakfast. I had, and I blew lunch. So I'm just going to start tomorrow. Well, just do dinner or add one thing in it. We get in these ruts, and I do it too, where we're like, I'm either doing the whole thing or I just will check it off. I didn't do it. And right now, especially with people that have kids at home and are having their spouses work from home. I mean, come on, spouses are a big distraction. We all know that at home. Break it up. I mean, literally, if you have 15 minutes and you were supposed to prospect for 3 hours, do your 15 minutes. So I
I
think we
love
get
that.
caught in that
I love that.
all or
That is
nothing
so
game.
powerful, Amy. I love that. Seriously. That is absolutely awesome. That is, I wrote that down. Stop playing the all or nothing game. And
So
I've never identified it that way, but there's been many times where I expected that I was going to be at the gym for an hour and 15 minutes. And there's many times where I said, you know what, it's better I just go do 20 minutes of cardio. Or to your point today, Mal, right? He can't hit gym. So can you take the walk, whether it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or 30 minutes, whatever that you just stop. I love that. Better that you 5 phone calls than no calls at all, as an example.
right.
Talk a
Well,
little bit about your schedule today. What does that look like for you? How are you prospecting? How are you managing your team? What does that look like in regards to contacting, speaking with people, calling your sphere? Talk in that realm of your schedule and specifically to prospecting.
so I have turned myself into a morning person years and years and years ago. I know people say I'm a morning person or a night person, but I've thought about and I have pushed back on some of my agents and even some of my friends have like, oh, I'm a night person. And when I've broken it down to see if somebody's a night person or a morning person, really it's about when somebody can get alone time. The people that stay up really late at night, it's because they want that quiet time where other people are in bed. And I think that's really the only difference. And if you can shift that to the morning and just get up earlier and have some quiet time in the morning, you can accomplish the same feeling as if you're staying up late. It's just a shift in your mindset. Um, but I get up early every day.
I love that, by the way.
Oops, my lights went off. Um, I'm not tall enough to keep them on all the time. So I get up early in the morning. I try to eat something good in the morning. First off, I always drink water first, and I don't jump right in the shower like I know a lot of the guys do. I have either some sort of meditation or prayer or journaling, something. Those to me are all kind of the same thing. I don't do all three of them every day, but I'll do something like that. And then I like to fill my mind with something spiritual, like that to be the first voice that gets in my head. And then I do like to exercise in the morning, however, which I did this morning. But sometimes I am telling myself not to do the all or nothing game, and sometimes I exercise in the evening. And sometimes I have 15 minutes in the morning, and sometimes I have 45, and vice versa at night. I try to double dip as much as possible. So if I want to watch a show, I jump on my treadmill at home and I'm like, I can watch the show, but I'm going to be on my treadmill, or I'm going to be on the treadmill listening to Morning Ascent or whatever.
Right.
Um, and then I look again at what I'm supposed to do that I looked at the night before, and I reevaluate because things come up during the night. Your email, I know I think Danette was emailing. Oh, I shouldn't have said the name. Somebody was texting me like at 11 o'clock last night, which I was awake, but I didn't respond till this morning. But there's a
Right.
couple things that you have to do to adjust in the morning, and then I make that list. And then every single morning I look at my people that I'm working with, and I look to see how I can stay in line with being a 5-star agent. Sometimes there you have those clients that need a call every day that are super high maintenance. And you know what? I'm going to give them a call every day. If that's going to get me a good review and 5 referrals, and that's and I look at that board every single day. I mean, once you start getting more than 1 or 2, or I don't know, when you get double digits
Right.
on the board, you have to pay attention. And I'm not talking about the paperwork. I'm talking about the personal connection you have with people. This is where the money happens.
So talk about a prospecting call today. What would that look like for you, for your team? What counsel are you giving in regards to that? What does a basic call look like? And we don't need all the details of the call, but more so, what's the tonality? What's the messaging? How are you approaching it? What are you sharing? I mean, is there minimum standards? Is the number of people you're going to speak to in a day? And what does that call look like?
So when I'm talking to my team, I know they're probably listening right now too, we are talking about things that are measurable, meaning time spent and people contacted and appointments made. Me personally, I know, George, I've told you this before, I consider myself a scrapper, meaning I need a deal, I'm gonna go get a deal. and that's how I've always worked. If I need a new client, my goal is always one new client a week minimum, a client. So when I get on the phone, I'm never thinking I'm getting on the phone to make an appointment. I think I'm getting on the phone to get a client. I'm getting on the phone to get a deal. I never think in my head appointments. I think deals, clients. So,
Love that.
but
It's a great, that's great.
one of the things that I have told my team, a lot of the stuff that we've heard from people that has been fantastic, and I'll just add on to that about what the phone calls look like. Brian Burnett, he gave some good verbiage on how are you guys feeling, how are things going, are you still working, how are things going with your family, your kids, how's homeschool, all those personal things. We need to add on to that. They always, if they know you and you're calling your sphere, they already know that you're in real estate and they're asking you about real estate. It
Sure.
is so important for us to give people permission to do real estate right now. When you're on the phone, you have to give an invitation, because not everybody knows that real estate is still working like it is. We do this all the time. So people know, but I am telling my agents, when you're talking to people, give them an invitation that it's okay. You got permission to do real estate right now, and these are the reasons why. And I also tell them, one of the responses you can give people that we're talking to when they're saying, well, how's real estate and can you still work? I say something like this. I say, real estate is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, stimulus to the economy. So we are being encouraged to do our part and to keep working. And I'm doing just that. I am still trying to do my part to keep things moving.
So you're sharing a little bit about obviously essential services and the opportunity to still sell real estate and to be able to help people who are frankly in true need in today's marketplace, despite what's going on with the COVID.
I'm moving a lady right now that she's just starting the early stages of dementia. We're getting her into a 55 plus community. If I waited 6 more weeks, I don't know if she's going to make it. We got to
Right.
do it yesterday. We got
Well,
to
that
get
was a lot of our arguments on the California side, is the desperation of certain people who are in a truly highly motivated in quasi must sell type of situation.
Yeah,
When we saw the government do some really crazy antics in regards to the way in which they allowed real estate to be sold or not be sold, 1 day on, or 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week back on.
Right.
And that really kind of obviously shook a lot of people at their core, going, whoa, what's happening next? And fortunately, we now are going on about 2 weeks of that reversal, but it really rocked not only the agents, but I think a little bit of just the real estate mindset in regards to that. So I love the fact that you're explaining that, to your point, right? How can I help you? How are you doing? How's your family? How's your job? And have a legitimate, real conversation. And then be of the mindset. I love that. I've never said it that way. And that is that you're looking to truly find a client, not just an appointment. Find a deal that you truly are going to do, not just a contact.
An appointment's never resonated with me. I need a deal. And that comes back to when I was newer in the company and I had eight, 5 plus my mouth to feed, and I had no rich parents or anything. And it was like, get a deal or go homeless. I really had
Yeah,
no
love that.
place to
That's
go.
great.
And I was just like, nope, I'm missing dinner tonight with the kids, but when we come home, they're going to be happy they have some food.
Right,
you
right.
know,
Exactly.
you
It's
know,
good.
one
I
of the
love that.
things, one of the things I was thinking about, George, when you asked me that last question is how, some of the cool things, I'm Zoom, my new best friend, I'm excited about that. And I just wanted to maybe give a little bit of a tip on your Zoom calls. I don't know what our time frame looks like, but
We got
just
just a couple of minutes. So give us this, and I'm going to ask you, give us
okay.
your last final thoughts. So,
Okay, well
give us
maybe
the
this
Zoom
will
tip,
be a last
and then
final thought.
no, give us the Zoom tip, and then give us one final thought.
Okay, so Zoom is a screen. People love their screens. Right now, people are in front of their screens all the time. I love to go to the movies. I can't go to the movies right now. So remember, when you are on a Zoom call, you are entertainment. You are on a screen. They're pulling themselves away from their phone, from their TV, from the lights are on. all the other screens to be on the screen with you.
Right,
So make it entertaining. Have some fun with people. When you're talking about homes, we're talking about homes. It's going to be exciting. Woo! I'm so glad to meet you guys. This is going to be great. Is that your dog in the background? What's your dog's name? Who's that screaming? That's little Joey. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. I mean, you guys, it's entertainment. We need to be
I love
professional.
that.
We need to
Love
be
that.
professionals, but remember, our screen that we're putting in front of our people, it has to be the main attraction at the moment. So just a little tip on that.
You know what? You're spot on. And if there's ever more animation, right, that is needed in regards to when you're specifically speaking with a client, I don't know how much more important that could possibly be, which I love the idea of doing that. So it's good. All right. So give us your final thoughts.
Um,
What's your final counsel, your final suggestion, your final just words of wisdom from the great Amy Clark?
I just want to encourage you, I guess, to stay in your own lane. Don't compare yourself to other people. Be realistic with where you're at, and then, but keep coming up with the newer and greater version of you every year,
I
every
love that.
week, every day.
So that I make sure I want to clarify. What I'm hearing is stay in your lane. Stop comparing yourself against everybody else. And I always say this: the greatest measuring stick, right, is what did you do in relationship to what you could have done.
Yeah,
And
you'll always
because
be
look,
impressed
so
if you
there's so
compare.
many. Yeah, there's so many people that have so much respect for you, Amy, and have watched your journey firsthand and love what you've done and the difference that you make and the way in which you're able to give of your heart, your soul, your help, your assistance to other people. It's an amazing example of the fact that as you give, you're going to get more, which I love seeing. And so, and make sure before this closes out that you go up there and look at those chats, because you got a bunch of your fan club telling you how awesome you are. And guys, if you love this, I'd encourage you to make a note up there in the chat button. And let's thank you, Amy, for spending time with us. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for the example that you are and the leadership that you offer, not only to the obviously the people within the state of Utah today, but also within this company. So thank you. Love you to death.
My pleasure.
Okay. All right. Here we go.